up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. It'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. Happy Monday. Hope the weekend has treated you okay. And I appreciate a handful of people that reached out and they were asking about, the weather, this hurricane, West Coast hurricane, which is I'll give the climate changers credit on this one. It's not one that I'm particularly I don't recall a whole lot of tropical storms / hurricanes out here on the West Coast, but I'm doing fine. I'm if I knew how to do it, Facebook, I would mark myself safe from Hurricane Hillary. For now, I've said a lot of disparaging things against the Clintons in jest and among other things. So may not be the woods just yet, but as of right now, I'm doing okay, and it's funny the amount of attention that this hurricane has gotten. I guess it did kill somebody down in Mexico, down on Baja, like a little strip, and it washed a car away or something. But boy, it's been a lot of a lot of kind of like panic, I guess. So this is NBC News. Live updates. Storm slams California with flash floods. The first tropical storm to hit Southern California in 84 years. Though it's not the first. It just doesn't happen very often. Also, they had a 5.1 magnitude earthquake yesterday, like right as it got downgraded from hurricane to tropical storm, and we've been on edge all weekend. Los Angeles Fire Department chief said today that there has not been reported significant injuries due to the storm. Newsom declared a state of emergency. So did Joe Lombardo here in Nevada. Cautiously optimistic that damage from Tropical Storm Hillary will be minimal. It's really funny because when you were looking at the forecast of how much it was supposed to rain, there was like one little strip, and I'm guessing it's like the Palm Springs area, where they thought maybe they'd get as much as 10 inches of rain, which is a lot. Also not unheard of. For Texas had 10-inch rain in a couple hours here earlier this spring. And you may have seen some videos on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook or whatever of a bunch of Brainerd steers essentially swimming out the feedlot gate because the water was so deep. So water is a very powerful element. From our perspective, we're at here. So this is the sheriff, Robert Luna. I believe from what we see now, and I'm cautiously optimistic, as I've said, that our team did very well, adding that authorities are still evaluating the extent of potential damages. From our perspective, the tail end of the storm, noting that significant rainfall, flooding, and wind occurred overnight. And so now it's moving up my way. We had about an inch of rain last night. We've had a pretty good amount of rain, but it's been nice. Oh, excuse me, but we've had we've had about close to an inch and a half of rain in the last, well, since like Friday night. But it's been like nice, steady, slow, soaking in rain, knocked this down, knocked the heat down. No flood yet. So there were no injuries, very little damage resulting in the earthquake. Palm Springs has declared a local state of emergency, and so this is and those spots water goes to. So it honestly not much to really concern about. 8,000 people without power. That's not bad considering it's Los Angeles. 18,000 at 1.41,000 out of 1.5 million. Trying to find the number that they actually got. I believe so. There was this headline that wasn't a headline, I guess an article. The headline was Death Valley receives triple the amount of rainfall that it normally gets in 3 hours. And that sounds kind of like an alarming amount, if you will. Excuse me. And yeah, it sounds like an alarming amount of water in a short amount of time. But when you looked at the numbers, the average rainfall of Death Valley in August is about 0.21 inches of rain. And they got 0.63 tenths of or hundredths of rain. 0.6 inches. 63 hundredths. Exactly 3 times the monthly amount, but yet still significantly less than an inch of rain. So, I mean, while it's kind of a neat statistic for Death Valley, which is, I believe it's the Sonoran Desert. Either way, it's legit desert, not high desert, just like regular asshole desert, sand and all that, all that nonsense. So, less than an inch of rain made headlines for Death Valley, which is seems a bit overblown, in my humble opinion. But I believe LA Hopper received about 2.5 inches of rain, which is a pretty good amount for sure. And in a city that's probably not set up for a whole lot of rain. Yeah, I'm sure shit got a little bit messy, but it is nothing like, say, Mississippi River flooding. Any of those cities on the bank of the Mississippi or the Missouri or any big river, when it really decides to flood, that's when shit gets dangerous. I don't know, this it's kind of continuing trend over the past several years to just really overblow some weather conditions, to just like really hype up how extreme and whatnot it is. And then of course it always leads back to making you feel guilty about climate change and whatnot. So and your typical deals, you know, we gotta point out carbon emissions, we gotta point out methane emissions from cattle, and then you have all these countries around the world, including on our northern doorstep, Canada, Netherlands, Ireland, like trying to just do away with their entire ag sector, which, don't get me wrong, they could all probably be reformed, even here in the U.S., where we got the the most subsidized sector of the economy outside of the political sector. But farmers receive a ton of subsidies, and they're still, unless they're like a big giant corporation, they're having a hard time making a go of it. And but that aside, like that's a sector of the economy that feeds the rest of the economy, and not just us, but around the world. And they're, I mean, like in Ireland, their solution, our proposed solution, is to just slaughter a bunch of dairy cows. And I guess you get to drink cricket milk or something. I don't know exactly what the plan is there. Mostly bugs, I think, bugs and fake meat, which I don't know the I don't know the ecological environmental impact of raising of crickets and bugs in an industrial setting to replace meat production. I don't know, but I do know that it has been hypothesized quite extensively that this lab grown is worse for the environment than just your average pig, cow, or chicken. That we had this this prolonged heat wave across the Southwest this summer, and it's still going on in different parts of the Southwest. But Phoenix was over 110 degrees for the high for a month straight, 30 something days in a row, and that's a lot of days in a row for sure. No doubt about it. But if you look closer at some of the what they were reporting, and meteorologists, and not just like hack journalists or fake news people, but they were actual meteorologists, and they were talking about the heat domes that were created over Phoenix and Vegas in particular. Which, let's talk about Phoenix and Vegas. They're both legit in the desert. Like, it's known that those cities, it gets really hot. There's not a whole lot of water in said areas because it's a desert. And all you folks east of the Mississippi River, you probably don't know a whole lot about what we're talking about, because water's not really an issue. Quality of water's an issue east of the Mississippi because that's where a lot of the major polluters and industrial waste and runoff that goes into the water systems. Not that it doesn't happen out west either, but on a lesser scale because it's a scarcer resource out here. Anyway, have you ever been to Vegas in the middle of July? And I have, and it kind of ruined me on Vegas forever. Because my entire thought the whole time was, why would anyone live here? It's just too damn hot. So I had my transmission out on me in Vegas here when I first moved out to Nevada. And so we had to limp it into a casino parking lot, drop a trailer, and when I was climbing up on the black flatbed, typical cowboy rig, and I was climbing up on the flatbed to unhook the trailer, and the jeans I was wearing, they're really comfortable because I was going to be driving about 1,500 miles. That was the plan. Didn't work out that way. Instead, spent a week in Vegas waiting on my pick to get fixed. But there was, when I went to go and hook that trailer, the jeans I was wearing had a hole in the knee. I knelt down to lift the pin, and you could hear the skin sizzle. Like, it was that hot. And I think the air temperature, like the rear temperature, was about 108, 110, somewhere in there, hot. But on that concrete, it had to have been closer to like 140, 150. I mean, it was hot. and I've had some pretty good experience with this, you know, differences in temperatures and as you know, compared to different surfaces. So I spent uh, a significant amount of time. I forget exactly when we started that cow calf project, and when I guess it had been like 2012 to I moved out here in 2017. So 2012 to 2016, I spent doing a confined cow calf operation in Kansas, and you know, Syracuse, Kansas can get pretty hot in the summer, and it you know, it's pretty it's a pretty harsh place to live for the most part. You know, the winters can get real cold and windy, and the summers can get real hot and windy. Um, and the when you get into the feedlot, those bare pen floors get significantly hotter than it does when you have the ground covered with grass or some sort of vegetation. It really makes a difference to cool things down. So we were trying to calve in you know, started calving late May through the early part of July, which probably would have been okay out on grass, but in the feedlot, it was just too damn hot, and we were constantly having overheated cattle, calves in particular. The mama cows, they weathered it just fine, but those baby calves, boy, they suffered. So we made a bunch of shades and looked like giant trampolines, and it made a big difference. The it cooled the floor, the ground temperature by about 20-25 degrees, just by having that little bit of shade. And they looked like big tramping covers, essentially, is what they were. They're a little more heavy duty than that, but it really made a big difference. And so when they talk about these heat domes, you get all this urban activity, so concrete, steel, glass, and that's the thing about cities, is you are literally living on top of each other. And it's I can relate to it because it's kind of like the feedlot. Feedlot's like the urban version of the cowboy world, where the cattle all come in, congregate in a close space, just like people living in an urban center in a city. Well, when you got these two pretty big cities, like Phoenix, I believe, is like the fifth largest city in the U.S. right now, and and Las Vegas, Clark County in particular, but Clark County is you know, the area, but like Las Vegas and North Las Vegas in particular, that's like 2/3. I think maybe it even more, might be closer to 3/4 of the population of the state of Nevada lives right there. And when you get these heat waves over these major metropolitan areas, causes like a greater heat intensity, and it makes it harder for that heat to dissipate as the heat wave moves through. So instead, as the heat wave moves through, it just kind of lingers over particularly Phoenix and Vegas, because it just, there's so much urban activity, there's so much, you know, more attracts the heat way more in these urban areas. And so they're blaming it on climate change for all these extreme temperatures in Vegas and Phoenix, and I won't even dispute that necessarily. There has been definitely been that has changed throughout the years, and I do believe we play sort of effect on it, and people might call me naive about that, but I would just point you to the Dust Bowl. I mean, we didn't change the weather pattern necessarily, but we changed the conditions on the ground by plowing up 30 million acres of grassland, and it's not like it wasn't a problem that people didn't see coming. At least some people did. There was Joseph Hutton. I was reading up on him last night, and he was warning about the soil condition as far back as 1911. So I mean, people saw it coming, but I guess people didn't want to listen. And so yeah, the heat wave was probably going to come regardless. But I doubt it would have been 31 or so days in a row of 110-degree heat in Phoenix area had there not been this giant city there. And so when they can point to cattle all they want, but the cattle didn't cause that heat dome over Phoenix and Las Vegas and these other metropolitan areas. That wasn't that wasn't that wasn't due to carbon emissions from methane emissions from cattle. That didn't cause it. Um, like these fires in Maui. It sounds like that was it was. It's not an uncommon to have the wildfires like that in that area. I guess it's a pretty grassy area, and grass tends to burn hot and fast. Spread like wildfire. Um, the government agencies tasked with dealing with it did a shitty job. It sounds like. I don't know how it started. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories floating around. I won't get into them because I don't know enough about them. But from what I understand, though, they waited like 5 hours to release extra water, which could have been done immediately and would have dramatically helped quell the spread of that fire. But instead, it had like 5 hours to just rage pretty much uncontested. There were firemen out there, but they didn't have enough water to spray it down. And then by the time they finally did allow for the release of this other, they were going to divert water from a bigger stream, and which is what eventually they did. But by that point, it was already too late. And you're just like, well, that seems like it had very little to do with climate change, causing this raging inferno. It sounds like it was a kind of a natural deal that got out of hand because the human response was too late. And like I said, I don't know what started it, but it's kind of hard to blame the climate when there's plenty of human beings at fault right there. And I don't know. I've also noticed over the past several years the different names they start coming up with these for these weather phenomenons and phenomena. But like you hear this winter was the atmospheric river that caused all of the flooding and the heavy snowfall, which, by the way, we were shut off from the other valley without having to drive way around for like 6 months. It was due to a rock slide from heavy snow and rainfall. And like it was a pretty big chore, but if they would have called in equipments from the mines, which were right there close, and just like, hey, get this moved out of the way so people can get back and like there was, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a whole lot of people that live here that were affected, but it was pretty much all the people that live here were affected. So as a percentage, it was a much higher percentage than say like one of the passes closing down, because there's several passes and people kind of know which way to go depending on what time of year. And where this was a major thoroughfare, and it like I said, it affected pretty much everybody in the valley. And it took them 6 months to get it moved when it should have taken, a couple of weeks at most to get it moved, and then, however long to patch the road. But it was a whole bunch of environmental damage they were assessing when there was very few rocks that went in the river. And I don't know, it just seemed like that was made way longer due to government response. And I mean, the weather and the climate did what it was going to do, but it was the government response and delay that caused this big fuck up in our lives. And I don't know. It just what was they had like the bomb cyclone, and I forget what all they, and maybe it's just an updating of weather term, but it used to be like a blue norther. That was a big cold front that blew in hard and usually came with a lot of bad weather. Um, El Nino, we're like just now going back into an El Nino cycle, which used to be pretty decently understood, at least where agricultural kids were concerned in school, because agriculture is almost entirely dependent on the weather. Um, and we knew that El Nino meant a kind of a wetter period, where La Nina was probably going to be pretty droughty, and sometimes those periods last longer than they did before. Sometimes they're shorter. Like I think the La Nina cycle was kind of extended here for a while, and with La Nina comes droughts, and it's something that you just gotta you have to come to terms with as a farmer, rancher, whatever, because you're dependent upon on the rain, the weather. The weather is that's like your biggest unknown variable, and but you get to understand patterns, and as we're going into the El Nino, like that's you can expect some more rain, and I freaking love it. I feel sorry for anybody that's had their homes damaged and whatnot, or any sort of trouble caused by this flooding. But I mean, it's you don't break a drought without a significant amount of moisture, and that's kind of exactly what has been happening. Is El Nino El Nino just kind of threw his down on the table and said, "I'm here now. Here's some rain and snow," and we've had a bunch of it in in the past 9 months, and it that's what it takes to break a drought. So I hope maybe it'll level off and we get continued rainfall, but maybe not in big bunches that because that's caused problems. It's not really good for anybody, but it happens, and it's happened since the beginning of whenever all this started happening. It's just it just kind of a fact of life that the weather's gonna be weather. And so, like, whereas I'm concerned, since this hurricane has hit, we've had like an inch and a half of rain, and it's been really nice. We've needed it for several years, and now we're finally getting it. And you kind of have to deal with any of the issues that comes with it. It's just part of. And I I would tend to say, like, when you hear these stories about Vegas and Phoenix, like the heat dome stuff, or now with the flooding in LA, I read more into the numbers and see like how much rain actually fell. Like I said, they were saying at one point 41,000 of the 1.5 million utility customers didn't have power. So 41,000 is a lot until you compare it to the overall number. And so we're like, they did pretty good, really. Like, not bad. Not bad. You're not talking about extremely widespread power outages. It seems like it's a fairly small amount compared to the overall. And I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping for when severe weather hits, is to just minimize the damage. And it seems like that used to be a more like common position to take. It's just like, hey, it's like they'll embrace the suck thing, whether just whatever it is, like, it's gonna suck. Like, oh shit, we got an actual hurricane coming our way. Oh fuck, we might experience what Florida experiences every year once. And so you prepare accordingly and you try to minimize damage. And what they did, I don't know what they did. But at the end of the day, it's just like doesn't seem like it was that bad. And it was like top of report, top of Apple News, top of Google News, and all the news aggregators. The top headlines was about California and flooding and hurricanes and earthquakes. And earthquake was is a 5.1, which is moderate, and it seems like it didn't do much of anything. It was just it happened, and it's like if a tornado touches down in the middle of say like a CRP field where there's nothing around, and so it chews up some grass that you can't use anyways, and so like the day didn't do much damage. It's kind of seems to be what that hurt or the earthquake was, which just happened, but nothing really happened. And I don't know. I I it seems like these I mean it's been clickbait for quite a while on the news, but they get more and more, and like the more alarming the headlines is, it seems like that's where they're trying to drive the narrative. So like after COVID kind of died down with everybody, granted there's still a few people that are terrified of COVID, but like once the overall the country kind of got over, like we're going back to as normal as possible now. The narrative started shifting to climate change, and so we got the electric vehicle push, we got solar and wind and whatever, and it's all to save the climate. But also at the same time, we we have like the biggest release of methane into the atmosphere ever, at least man-made one, when they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, which, according to some sources, we had a major hand in, as a as the U.S. foreign policy. The administration seems to have had at least knew it was going to happen, if not actually blew it up ourselves. But that was, I don't know how much methane that got released into the ocean and then later the atmosphere. But that it was like a little over a week that it was just spewing methane in the Baltic Sea. And yeah, but in the meanwhile, they're trying to get rid of your diesel pickup or your gas stove or just your cows and how you make a living, because emissions. But don't worry about that. Russia probably did that themselves. It's funny, but I guess more than anything, I just thought it was interesting how this is reported versus like what actually happened. And so at the end of the day, I bet they'll find somebody that dies that gets attributed to this hurricane in California. But it seems like it was a lot of rain and a lot of wind, but not a ton of damage. Dodger Stadium flooded apparently. I bet you there's some conspiracies on there, because I saw one picture that people were arguing about of Dodger Stadium, and they're like, this is an old picture of Dodger Stadium, and maybe it was. I don't know. But it seems to be like there are some spots of pretty significant flash floods, but I don't know. It's like I said, it seems like kind of pales in comparison to some of the Mississippi River flooding, and I don't know, like Oh, it'll be interesting to see if they have to repair a bunch of roads, because I tell you, around here, all those mountain roads are beat to shit. And if you talk to the ranchers, they are still fixing fence as they go, because it just, yeah, all the fence is just shot to shit from that amount of snow this winter. And I don't know. It's kind of like when New York City had the smoke from the Canadian wildfires for a little while, and boy, you heard all about and how terrible it was. But oh man, it's been like every summer since I've lived out here, except this year. We've had a few hazy days from fires, but for the most part, we've been pretty lucky this year. But normally, I mean, it's just like we had like 6 weeks solid of real thick smoke last summer or the summer, I can't remember. They kind of run together, but we've had a bunch. And I don't know. It just, I guess when it affects a whole, a big city like that, they get a little temperamental. And but they'll, like typical, they'll ignore us out here in the sticks, which is fine. But it's hard to feel bad for when it happens to them, because we've been ignored for so long. So anyway, I'll restate that I feel bad for everybody has been affected by the flooding and whatnot, by the heat this summer. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see somebody point the finger in the right direction, as opposed to people raising cattle for a living. So anyways, hope you all have a week. We'll have I don't know what we got going on this week for the show, but it'll be something. And to all the new listeners that I've got, I did the review on Richmond, north of Richmond, and that episode blew the hell up. Welcome. I hope a number of you stayed around, because there was a whole bunch of you that listened, and I could sure use you sticking around and listening to more. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. I don't do that type of episode very often, but if you enjoyed it, listen to a few more. If you really enjoyed it and you think I'm doing something cool here, you can support me over at patreon.com/Burnin Daylight. It starts at $5 a month. You get different perks with it, but you already heard the ad before. But that's the best way to do it. So patreon.com/Burnin Daylight. So y'all stay safe out there. Don't get flooded out. And if you do, feel bad for you. And if it's still hot where you're at, just remember it is still summer. So it does get hot in the summer. As much as they try to make it sound like it was weird for it to be 110 degrees in Phoenix, it's not. Pretty calm, really. So particularly in the summer. Weather is still weather, folks. And but what do I know? I'm just a dumb cowboy. So on that note, you don't care, and move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. the saddle till the job's done right.